Hey y'all, it's Moonlight Cowboy, and today is going to be a very long tutorial on how to do overhangs on roofs. So this has been something that has been asked of me for some time, and there's so many different ways, so many different techniques and styles to do this that I wanted to get a few builds under my belt where I could, do a build while demonstrating it. So today you're going to get to see some builds that I did using this technique. As far as I know, some of these techniques were ones that I came up with and I haven't seen on other videos, so hopefully you're able to learn something. Hopefully you're able to, after this, be able to reference this and make some really cool camps with overhang roofs. The first one is going to be the most basic kind. This one is super easy. Anybody can do this. Although you see me use catwalks for this, you can freehand it too, so you don't even need special catwalks. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm placing my roofs up, and then I'm just going to go ahead and angle that off so I can get rid of that wall. And I'm going to remove those floors real quick and get them out of the way. Once I get some spacing for my catwalk, which I'm going to have to readjust here in a second too. So we're getting those out of the way. And once they're out of the way, I'm going to get my foundation in place and I'm just going to line it up. Alright, I saw that it needed a little bit more adjusting, so we're going to add one more catwalk to go that way. So that way, as you'll see here, it's going to take me straight into the correct spot to place these walls. So basically what I did was I went 4 wide, and now I'm going to go 3 wide on the foundations. So this will give me a half overhang length basically. So 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3, and our walls are placed. Now you'll see a big square popping up through the top. That looks hideous to me for this build, so what we're going to do instead is we're going to put the roofs on a different way. Instead of bringing them in flat like I did prior, I'm going to do this at an angle, and I'm going to show you the reason why here in a little bit. But basically putting it at the roof at an angle brings up that height of the roof system, but I'll show you later. For now, let's get these roofs on and get this party started. So as we're going to see with this, since I'm adding the roofs after, I'm going to have to put them in at an angle. Not a big deal. Instead of flat, once I put that angled one and then I flattened it. And yeah, so once I get all these placed, you won't see that roof anymore. It'll sit a little higher up on that build. Now when you're adding that roof and you're doing it at an angle, you can then flatten it and it'll stay where it's at. But if you lay it flat, then it'll go a little lower. So sometimes that can be used to your advantage, as we're going to see later on in this video, where flattening it and angling it can actually really help you out and do some really cool tricks with that. Alright, so as we're getting these put together here, almost got them done. Once these are done, we're also going to show you some other cool things with like quarter overhang and some other things as well, and angled roofs. So this is going to be, like I said, a really long one. I apologize for that, but I really feel like it was important to get like a real definitive on how to do pretty much any kind of angled roof or flat roof with an overhang that you want to do. So as you see here, I'm turning these walls into doors, and that's so that way I can separate them from the roofs, or I'm sorry, from the walls. And I can just get rid of them, and then I can just re-add them back into position because I had that other foundation ready to go for that. And basically those roofs are going to mirror the same pattern as the foundations that I'm putting in. So it'll be half over and half over. Now you didn't have to do that extra part. You could have just left it as it was, but as you see, there's no ring up there from the walls poking through. So that's the way to do half overhangs, super easy. Now we start getting into the complicated stuff. So quarter overhangs, and this is going to have some flickering, but I'm going to show you a way to get around it. So first thing I did is I got a foundation into position by using catwalks. And as you see here in a second, we're going to put that there. And once I get those into position, I'm going to show you that they overhang just slightly from from the walls, basically. So these can be a little tricky to put these roofs in. Sometimes they're going to say that they're intersecting or can't be placed floating, and there's going to be ways around that, which I'm going to show you as well. All right, so as we see, like I said, we made sure that they're at a quarter angle. And you can kind of tell too by looking at the build itself. But yeah, see that how that overhang. Now I like that overhang the best because it's a little understated and it's super technical. So it makes your camp look really custom. All right, so as I'm getting myself in position here, making sure that my walls are exactly the length that I need them to be. I'm going to add my roof, and I'm basically doing the same thing that I did on the other side, but as you're going to see here, we're not going to be able to place that wall or that roof over the top. Trust me, you can't do it. It won't allow you to do it. So we're going to go ahead, and that one roof that we put over there is going to be kind of a placeholder. And as it sits there, I'm kind of planning out how I want to destroy the roofs, which we're going to have to do. And I like to use a flamethrower. If you got a buddy that likes to PvP and you want him to shoot stuff, I mean, that's another way you could do this as well. But as you see, I can't just place a roof there. All right, so the next thing we're going to have to do is get our other roofs that we want to be in place. And then we're going to angle up this roof here because these roofs are now in the way of our progress. So this will then, I will be looking for that flamethrower, and we're going to place that on top of the roof here, and then we're going to destroy it. And jump up, destroy. And yeah, once those two get destroyed, I will then very easily be able to place this roof. Cool. And we're really going to repeat this process around the camp, but as you see when I'm moving around, there's flickering, and there's flickering underneath too. And I'm going to show you a way to get around that with this method, and then I'm going to show you the really cool but yet super complicated way to do it without any flickering, like say you want to use these roofs specifically. There is a way around it, and it is a little tricky. But anyways, one of the ways that I like to get around the flickering is to find roofs with really cool texture. Like these burned roofs, you don't see a lot of the flickering from the burned roofs. They're really great, and they're a nice rustic look. And there's other roofs too that really don't give off a lot of flickering or minimal flickering. It's all about pain tolerance, right? So this is another one. From the top, it doesn't have any flickering for the abandoned mindset, but from the bottom, it does. But that's what we can fix. I'm going to show you how to fix that before we move on to the next way of doing the quarter overhang on the flat roofs. So anyways, I'm using catwalks off of the last roof that I placed over there. So that way I can put my other roof into position. And once that's there, I add that wall, kind of like I'm mirroring like what I did over there. And then I'm just adding a roof, an angled roof to the bottom of this wall. Like so, and like so. All right. And once that's done, I want to get the other one into place. Might as well do it now, rip the band-aid off. So we're going to catwalk off of that wall, and I'm going to put them to where it'll mirror the other side too. I could have done the same thing on that side. I'm just showing you a different way that you can do it. But I could have angled up that other roof on the other side just like I did for the first way. But I'm just going to catwalk off of that last wall that I placed. Put another catwalk, and I'm going to add another wall to it. And once that's done, I'll then be able to do the same thing. Add a roof right there. All right. So once those are added, I'm just going to flatten them to get rid of the walls. I'm going to have to angle them back up at some point here. All right, now I can get rid of those walls because they're no longer attached to those roofs. And now I'm going to look at where I'm going to place my next roof. Now I'll be able to place about one more roof before I have to start destroying stuff. So that roof, And then now I'm going to plan out which roofs I'm going to destroy to get this thing going. So I destroyed that roof, and then because I destroyed it, I was able to add the other roof that I couldn't add prior because there was a roof in the way. So whenever you destroy roofs, you can then add roofs around them. But of course we still have the flickering, which we're going to work on getting rid of. I'm going to add that last layer of roofs by just destroying these guys right here. And once I get everything angled the way I want, and I'm doing the angled, by the way, because they're easier to attach over the walls. You saw that earlier, just so you know, because you're probably wondering why I would angle all of those like that. But anyways, so now I added my wings over there, the two end pieces, and it's not letting me place this roof, right? It's saying intersecting, but what the hell could it be intersecting with? It's intersecting with those roofs, like I said. So if you get stuck like that, just move the roof or like change the angle of the roof that's right next to it, and it should allow you to place it. And then once that's destroyed, we're able to put in our last roof. There we go. I didn't actually need to destroy that other roof, but I was stuck for a second and I forgot my own roll. So again, you just flatten this roof, and yeah, now I can add that other roof. That looks pretty good. Now I know for a fact my entire build is covered with roofs, and I know they're all quarter overhang, which is what I want, but I definitely am not going to want that flickering. This is where we have to get a little bit creative. So we've got flickering in different parts of this build. Of course, you can't see it with those other roofs. So we can go to a roof like the grass roofs or the glass roofs. You can even do cool things like this too, and those roofs don't really have a lot of flickering, but I'm going to show you how to get rid of the flickering otherwise. So like I'm going to change them to, I'm going to change them to angled, and then I'm going to destroy them. All of these roofs are going to get turned to angled. Every last one of them. All of them are going to get destroyed. And it doesn't matter what kind of roof style it is. It could be grass, could be glass, could be whatever I want. And then once they're destroyed, that's what it's going to look like. So kind of crazy. But because they're destroyed, we're going to add them flat roofs to the style that I want inside. I want a nice clean look. So the clean ranch is fantastic for that. I'm just going to add those in. And because I'm adding these flat, they're going to be set slightly lower than the roofs up top that we angled up. And now we're going to have minimal flickering. There's a little spot in the front, but you could probably use like the burnt roofs to get rid of that, but there's no flickering underneath. So that looks really clean. And it was really that one spot with these grass roofs. I'm going to give you some examples too of what kinds of roofs that I like to use to prevent flickering, especially when I'm using roofs as floors, because that gets to be obnoxious, and I'd have to do that a lot when I'm working like with my sky builds. So like I said, other than that one spot, oh, of course, over the front door, there's no more flickering in any of the roofs from the top or from the bottom because I'm using a textured roof. So I wanted to take a moment, since I was talking about the flat roof versus angled roof in the beginning, I wanted to actually show you what that looks like. So I'm kind of stopping when I'm doing mid-build, and I want to show you. So we're going to add two walls, kind of tale of two cities, right? So I'm going to add one, and I'm going to do it angled. I'm going to add the other one, and I'm going to do it flat. Now when I flatten this other roof, as you see, one roof is slightly above the other one. And again, this technique will come in handy more than it comes in hindrance. So for those of you who have placed roofs and you're like, why is it off? It doesn't make any sense. One's higher than the other one. That's why, because you placed one flat, whereas then you should have placed one to all be flat or all be angled. So here are some roof textures that I like to use. I love these, like the enclave roofs. They're really great to minimize flickering. You don't see it on the edges of them either. You might see it when you're right on top of it, but it's so black that you can't really tell. So now I'm going to do the hard part. So we want to use those roofs, and we want them to not flicker. So as you saw there, I basically made it to where all the roofs were kind of at one corner, and we just have to kind of go around the other edge like an L, right? So my hope is that you understand how to get it to that point, because I wanted to give you the gift of time without having to go through that whole rigmarole again. What I'm doing is I'm actually taking the foundation and I'm raising it and lowering it ever so slightly. And because I'm a human being, it's not going to be perfect. So it's going to be usually like a pixel or two off. It's going to take you several tries to get that down. But as we're going to see here, I'm going to flatten this roof because I just slightly raised that foundation and lowered it. Barely any overhang, or barely any difference between the roof layers. I mean, there's a minuscule one, and I probably could have done a slightly better job because I've gotten it to where you can't see that before. It does take a little bit of extra time and effort to do. So I'm basically going around and I'm destroying all the roofs that would then be in the way of this process. I don't have to destroy every roof, just the ones that would intersect. And I'm going to add my other roofs in like so. And yeah, got them all in. And then I'm going to flatten them just because I want to show you how that kind of looks after the fact. So can't really tell, again, unless you're right on top of it. And I could have gotten it a little bit cleaner, like I said. But I mean, it's pretty darn close. And with the right textured roof, you won't see it anyway. So once I got that into place, I'm going to do the other side here. I always like to clean up my mess before I leave. And so, yeah, I'm moving my my foundation down again. And it's a very similar process. I'm just going to get my foundations into place and my wall. And then and my angled roof, because they're all angled, because I don't want the wall to be showing through the top of the roof, right? And I'm checking this one too to make sure it's pretty close. It's pretty close. Actually, that's better than the last one I did. It's just a touch over, but again, very minuscule and you won't get any flickering. Alright, so once I've gotten those all angled back up, I'm going to destroy them, and to save you the time of watching me jump around with a flamethrower, I'm going to add my roofs in. And I'm just showing you this one real quick, just to see how close I got. Again, if it were me building, I wouldn't be doing this. I'd just be jumping and getting it all knocked out. But yeah, so there's a little line there too. Could have gotten a little closer, like I said, and it is very possible. But rather than to wait for me to come out with this tutorial, I'm actually about buying a house and I'm about to move. So I wanted to get this out before that. So I just wanted to show you how this is done. So anyhow, so we got all of the pieces in except for this last corner piece. Yes, we have to do one more piece. So again, followed the exact same process that I had done before. This time I only had to destroy the 3 roofs that were around it. And once those are flattened, we are good to go now. I could have went underneath and added the other roofs again. As you see, that one was a little high. But with a little bit of practice and patience, you'll be able to get it to where it's completely flush. But the cool thing is underneath, you have none of the flickering. There's no flickering throughout your build. It's a good look. And like I said, it just takes a lot of patience. So best of luck with doing the flat roofs. Now we're going to move on to angled roofs. So this one is actually pretty easy as well. You already learned how to do the double roofs from the last part of this tutorial, so I'm not going to dive in too hard on that, but I am just going to show you real quick that I flattened them first, angled them back up, destroyed them, and then once they were destroyed, I added the next set because I don't want to use the red roofs. I don't like the top of the red roofs, the clean ranch set, but I love the bottom of them, especially for these clean builds. They're the cleanest roof we have. And I can change those wall textures too, as we're going to see in a second, or roof textures, excuse me. When I change these roof textures, you won't see the flickering anymore. Even if they're like almost the same texture on the side, it changes it somehow, and then you won't actually see that flickering, which is another reason why when I'm double roofing, I make sure that it's usually 2 different roofs unless I'm stacking them, which we're going to get to that here later on in this tutorial. So yeah, look, no more flickering on the sides there because we changed the roof style. It popped it out just a touch. So we got our base for this, and like I said, this one is pretty easy. So I'm basically going to move that foundation out, turn those walls into doorways, and that will then unhinge or unhook those floors from those foundations. And once that's done, I can use a little catwalk action here off of this. Again, you could do this freehand too. I just like using a catwalk for the accuracy. From here, I'm going to add those floors back, but they're a quarter inch or a quarter length in. And then to get the top parts of those in, the angled, I have to destroy the roofs to fit them in. They won't just go in. And then once I clean that up, I'm going to add my angled walls. You're going to hear me doing a lot of back and forth, where normally when I'm not showing you how to do stuff, I would actually be a little further along. But I'm just basically getting my foundations into place after I got my angled walls in up there. And I'm going to change them to the color that I want. The reason why I like that color is when I use that wallpaper, the vault walls, and that roof, it kind of frames it in with that really cool white around it. But one thing I can't stand is these little things that poke out from the angled roofs. But fortunately, not all angled roofs are the same. So my favorite go-to, especially when I'm double walling, is the casino quarter wall. If you notice, there's nothing hanging out the side there. But there are other walls that are pretty similar. One that is the new barracks, the Brotherhood barracks wall. So that one barely has anything. You can't really tell. So if you didn't go and buy the pack for the casino quarter walls, you can just search through your angled walls and see what will work best for you. So now we start getting to the really dicey stuff. So we're going to do overhangs off of the angle. It is a similar process, and I'm going to show you two different methodologies to doing this. Again, we're lowering the foundation, kind of like what we did when we wanted to do the flat roofs without the flickering. And as we see there, I didn't lower it enough, so I'm going to take it a little further out. And I'm fast forwarding through some of this because I could have cut this out, but I just want to show you like how many attempts that this can take. So as we're going out, I'm going to look, and nope, I still see a little bit of one right there. Menacing. So that's not going to do it for me. This one I want to be clean because I'm actually going to make a build out of this one. And you'll get to see a preview of that at the end. So I'm going to add one more over here just so I can get down that hill a little bit. And I think I got this one perfect. So because again, this is a build that I'm actually going to do and not just like showing you guys the technique itself. This is perfect. I checked it. I went around, I looked at it. So you will trust me that it is clean, perfect. So once I've got the first one in place, the rest are kind of easy. Easier, at least from the other side. So I'm going to use that wall, and I'm going to do two catwalks off of it. And I'm going to do another wall on the other side. I'm basically going to mirror it. And this is the kind of the proof in the pudding right here, because if that's not on there perfect, see how clean that is? If that wasn't on there perfect, if I didn't do a good enough job there, then it would have been off. So once I destroyed those roofs, I ran into a problem. I still couldn't get my roofs into place because the walls were in the way. So went ahead and turned those into the abandoned mine walls and destroyed them. Now I'm going to show you another technique that you can use too if you don't have the abandoned mine walls. This is just a way that if I didn't want to yank my walls out of there, I could have just destroyed them. But as you see, I ran into another problem. So I'm going to try and destroy this angled roof, and I'm only again showing you because you will get stuck like this and be like, Moonlight Cowboy, I couldn't get my roof in and I'm really stuck. So I'm showing you that this doesn't work. So I'm trying to put my roof in, and no, you cannot put your roof in with angled walls in place because they intersect. So I'm going to go ahead and take that wall out of the equation so I can get my walls in. All right, look, still can't get it in. Why do you think I can't get it in? Well, I'm going to show you in just a second. First things first, I'm going to turn these walls back into the abandoned mindset. Now, when you're doing this, I don't think I mentioned this before in this tutorial, but make sure they're the ones that go diagonal. They don't work the same way. They don't have the same physics for the ones that are like your door frame or your window or your plain wall. So make sure they're the ones with that diagonal in out. And as you see, still couldn't get it in. So again, why do you think I couldn't get it in? Well, that's because that doorway is still in the way. So what we're going to have to do, we can do one of two things. We can remove the doorway and put it back, or I can turn it into the abandoned mindset, and that will fix that. So right here, I'm trying to get that roof in, and same way as before. Sometimes even I forget, and I went ahead and just flattened the other roof, and that got it in. So can't get that in. I'm going to turn this into the Helvetia set like I talked about. There we go. And then I'm going to destroy it. I'm not even going to remove the door. I'm just going to destroy the wall. And once I do that, beautiful. Snaps right in. So I have to destroy that roof to then get the angled wall back in. And there. Now I have one layer of a overhang going out. Now I'm going to show you how to do it with a double layer. Similar process again as we did before. The difference this time will be that I'm going to actually remove the walls first instead of having to do it with the abandoned mindset, because not everybody has that set. So I'm going to show you how to do it without it in case you don't have that set. So first I have to unhook the walls by flexing those roof pieces from angled to flat or flat to angled, so that way it unhooks those walls. Then I'm going to put them in angled and destroy them. And then once they're destroyed, I'm going to take the other roof that was still there, and I'm going to go ahead and snap them into place. Again, for that front door or that other wall up front, I could either destroy it, turn it to Helvetia. I think on this one, I think I did still turn it to Helvetia, but later on, I think I ended up deleting it anyway for reasons. And I don't remember what those reasons are because I did the footage for this a while back, so I apologize. But either way, the process still remains the same. You could have deleted the wall, or you can turn it to Helvetia and destroy it. So now that we got those in place, I'm just showing you real quick again that we take that roof, and if it's angled, this time I want to make it flat. So all I have to do is really just pick it up and put it back down and see how it goes back down into the wall like that, because we're doing the underneath layer. And then once I do that, I can angle it back up. As long as I don't place it again, it'll stay in that angled position. Got my roofs destroyed, and this time I'm gonna add them flat, and this way they don't accidentally snap to the other roofs. I don't have to do it that way, but that's just from like the wisdom of making the mistake of snapping them to other destroyed roofs, because they will snap to destroyed roofs too. Yeah, and got to destroy that roof to get the angled piece back in, just like before. And once that's done, we now have our first walls up. One thing to take note, and I genuinely forgot to do this, so this is one of those things like, oh, I was just showing you guys. No, I forgot. You have to put in your double walls along the side here first, because if you try and do your recessed walls first before putting in your double walls, they just aren't going to place. So I had to remove those walls to be able to place my double walls. And then after that, I can still do the recessed walls as double walls. It just, the game doesn't like it. It's like, man, you're taking it too far. So now, once I have that into place, it takes me a second here, but I swear I snapped this thing in. Yes, I do, into that catwalk. To get that into place, everything's destroyed. And look, now I have double roofs that are quarter overhang on the sides, and then I did that recess right there. And so for the angled roofs, there's a few that look really good when you're doing this. The side of the roof needs to be like have a border like that, a thick border. But for the top, when we're doing this, we can do all kinds of different roofs as long as they don't have like some kind of weird white stripping or like border that with the overhang. So these are examples of those kind of roofs. Like grass roof's great, by the way, one of my favorites. And when you're doing this trick, this is one of the things you can come up with. So this was the build that I was working on with this, and I thought it turned out really good. So yeah, you can do some really cool things with that, and that really doesn't take too long to make that happen. So hopefully you like that part of the tutorial. For those of you who are like, oh man, you're really starting to lose me, yeah, I would consider skipping the next 20 minutes of this video because it actually gets a lot harder, but you get some really cool results. So now we're going to do angled roofs, multiple layers. So we did 2 layers. Now we're going to do 4 layers of roofs. And that's going to take something special. So I already started this one, and I didn't want to just do this whole build with you like I've done the last few times. So I did the same thing that I've done this entire time, as I took that foundation and I got it to the perfect height. And I'm going to remove that wall. And now as we see, that's about as perfect as I want. I mean, I'm good with that. As much of a perfectionist as I am, I'm pretty good with that. That looks pretty spot on. All right. So to get this where they're actually layered on top of each other at that level of thickness that you see that glass, rather than being like right on top of each other, where it's like a thin margin. What I'm going to do first, I'm going to add my roofs, get my first layer in. And once those are in, I'm going to destroy all those roofs. It's going to be a theme. We destroy a lot of roofs doing these tricks, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. So if that is something that you're like, oh man, I don't have a lot of resources, I would steer away from doing some of these tricks until you start building up your resources. But for those of you who are farm happy like I have been, or I'm very fortunate enough to get people to trade with me when I run into some really good stuff, or I've even gotten donations, that's really been beneficial to me. So onward. So this is how we're going to do the layering. So we destroyed all the roofs. I added, at that angled wall, I added a half wall, an angled wall, a half wall, and then a flat roof. And when I said angled wall, I meant angled roof. So angled roof, half wall, angled roof, half wall, flat roof. Once that's done, I get rid of the anything in my way. So I basically just leave that last roof in place. And then I'm going to use these roofs, and I'm going to just kind of what I call walking them down, basically by taking them and attaching them at an angle and then flattening them. I can walk them down. So that one was flat, so I can attach an angle, flatten that, and attach my, oh, no, I don't want to delete that, and attach my angle. And that is the perfect height to be right above your first set of roofs. So from here, we can place our next set of roofs. And they're a little tricky, so just be careful. I mean, not that you can't delete it if you snap it in just by turning it either into flat or angled. We're just going to delete them again. I'm going to show you this one more time, and then after that we're going to speed through this. Just that process. I'm not even going to really show you the stacking so much. So again, angled roof, flat or half wall, angled roof, half wall, flat roof. That gets you that height because of, again, when we were doing that flexing before of the roofs, where I showed you in kind of towards the beginning of the tutorial, where when you place one flat or you place one angled, it gives it that little variance. When you do this pattern, it actually exceeds that variance, and it keeps going up and up by that amount, by that little flat amount that you saw from the first one, or from the beginning of the tutorial. So that's how this trick works. That's the physics behind it. And yeah, so we got our third layer in. And really probably should have sped this part up, but It is a struggle to get these roofs in. Sometimes you just kind of have to play with it a little bit, but they will go in. I swear they'll go in. There we go. And there. So yeah, so we speed it up from here, and I'm just going to do this one more time to get that next layer. I like to, as well, when I'm doing this, like where I'm doing it like a super thick roof, I like to change the different like styles between the roofs. Sometimes I like to give like a like almost like a pinstripe, or you know, like in this case for this build, what I end up doing is I keep grass roofs on top, and then I do like white, like natural wood, and then white again, and it actually had a really cool look, and it gave it a nice texture. So once that's done, all I really have to do, I got all of them on now, and look how perfect that looks. You know, they're perfect. So once that's done, all I have to do is just change them to whatever style I want. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That's how you do the angled part of the roofs. Now the walls, to put these in, that's a whole nother story. We'll go through that in the very next tutorial, but I wanted to show you what this ended up looking like after I was done doing all of the walls and all of the tricks that it took to get them in. But this is, I did like a half A-frame with this one for, wanted to do a build in the new area. So, this last build that I did, or that I'm doing for this tutorial, was a Tudor house that I was inspired to do by TNG. So this is the one that has all of the overhangs. This one is overhang 360 degrees across the board. And I'm going to walk through the entire process of how I did this, including the walls, so that way you guys get an idea when you want to do custom walls with this. So I'm going to walk through the entire process from step to step. So again, if you already have a really good idea how you want to do your roofs, you can definitely skip this part. This part is more for those who want to know how to add custom walls to their roofs. So like, you know, in that last build that you saw, right? Like in order to do it with that roof that way, and then adding the walls afterwards, and then making the walls kind of different lengths. This is how I did that, but it's also going to include the roof part of this too. So I'm basically going to start from scratch. As you see here, I did the same thing that I've done the last few builds. Was I raised my foundation to get that perfect, and because this isn't just like slapping it together for a tutorial, that is actually perfect because I did this for a real build. So once that is in place, I get those roofs in over all around. So in order to get the other roofs over here, so that way I don't have to do that same foundation trick twice, I basically flatten those roofs from the other side. I attached a roof, flattened it, and then walked it over. And as you see, I didn't have to do it twice because I did it perfectly on one side. I could just flatten the roofs, walk it over, angle it back up, and that's going to save me a lot of time and patience, which sometimes can wear thin. So that's the initial product on this. And so from here, we're going to do the same thing below to get the double roof action. So there, and because I destroyed that, I was able to place the other roof in flat. And yeah, so that's going to be end up starting my second layer of roofs. To get it for the other side, I'm just going to do the same thing after destroying it. Bam. Good to go. Yeah. So once those are in, I can destroy all the roofs that are in that same that are connected to each other right there. That row, that first, I guess, upside down V, whatever you want to call it. And I've got my roofs in place there, and I feel good about those. So those are now going to be double layered, and I like to double layer these roofs, as I mentioned before, specifically because then I can have a different underneath of the roof. And I don't have, like on those metal roofs specifically, they don't have the lipping that when you're coming down off of the walls. Like some of the other roofs, like they'll have like that white line, and you'll see that as you're playing with them, because hopefully you'll go through your roofs and you'll be like, oh, this one will work, this one looks hideous, this one will work, this one won't. But anyways, For the second one, I did the same thing off of another wall from the same foundation that I placed the other wall on the other side to get that angled. And yeah, so that one was pretty easy to do because I already had the foundations and walls in place for that as well. As you see on the other side, I have two walls still there. So I just kind of walked that over. And now I have both sides done. At least I have like where it's slanted and I don't have to worry about the intersecting. I'm going to finish this one side right over there. And as you see too, this is something to be careful of when you're attaching the roof. You can accidentally attach it to the wrong side and waste about 5 minutes figuring out that you didn't attach it to the right roof to get it there. But this is what I was talking about again with the walking it over. So when I walked it over, you see right there, I have that it goes underneath. It's a little lower than the other roof. So once I destroyed those roofs, I just went ahead and added my roofs in there. And now I will have full floating roofs without any real walls here, other than what I've just posted, what you see. I'll end up removing those for the example, but I'm keeping the foundation in place. This is how I start a lot of my builds, so I guess I wouldn't necessarily be like, oh, that makes me a pro, and anything like that. That's just how I like to do it, because sometimes the roofs can be even trickier to get on, if not impossible. And walls snap through roofs way easier than roofs snap through walls, which is really the reason why I do it. It's more out of convenience. So for the first set of walls, I did the same thing that I have done up until this point. I used a foundation to make sure that they're the right height for that wall. And I catwalked up of it. Now, because I want there to be a quarter overhang on each one here, I'm just making sure that everything fits in there correct without popping out. And again, I love using those casino walls for this purpose. But once I know that those are going to be good and go into place, I will end up having to probably remove those angled walls up top. But if you notice, I'm using the Helvetia walls. The way that I'm doing it, that you're going to see, is some way that you really need to have these Helvetia, or not Helvetia, the abandoned mindset walls. My bad. You need to have those walls for what we're doing, because as you see, I'm going to destroy them. And this segues into a tutorial I did about walls recently. So you can snap walls into walls like this with this, like kind of like a wall merge. But I want to make sure that they're going the correct way. So just by destroying that Helvetia wall, you can snap things into it, specifically structural things. So I found that perfect distance to raise that foundation, so that way I get those walls in at that right height, so that way that line carries up through it. And a byproduct of doing the walls this way is that you can get some pretty cool effects. This is why I did this way on this build, because I was doing a Tudor build. As you'll see later on, I decided to use the ranch wall set. And the ranch wall set has that little thin wooden border around, which that is a way for me to get some of those Tudor features of having that inlay of wood, right? So anyhow, what I'm doing here is I'm just trying to get that angled piece off because I got stuck. I failed to take it off before trying to add the other wall in, and it won't add. So basically I turned that into that and removed the wall using the catwalk. And once I did that, I was able to add that. Now what's cool is these angled pieces oftentimes will actually just place by switching them to that angled part in. For some reason, that thing is like incredible when you try and use the nose of the wall, I guess you want to call it, to poke through the other wall. You really don't run into any issues. So we got our first wall in, and I went ahead and double walled it. I didn't think you guys wanted to sit through and watch me struggle bust my way through a double wall on this, but it's really the same process. Another cool byproduct of this is the fact that I've decided that I'm going to use glass walls on this, and I actually, off camera, I went ahead and made them kind of in the middle, and I only did one layer. And the reason being is I realized while I was doing this, I'm like, man, I'd really love to have some like what would look like faux sliding glass doors. And because I'm gonna raise the foundation when I'm done in that middle part, you won't see that. I will be able to make that look, they'll look pretty close to sliding glass doors. It's a pretty cool effect. Anyhow, I use catwalks off of the other side of what I did on the walls because I don't want to have to go through all that nonsense again. I already found the right levels for everything. So I'm just catwalking off of the other side of the walls that I already have in place. Because after you get that first set into place, everything kind of gets easier after that. It really does, because you don't have to go and find that right height again. And you really don't want to, because then your walls won't look the same on both sides. And once we do that, I am doing the double wall on this side. Only to show you that you can do double walls with catwalks. So people don't realize this. If you go out one more wall than you need to, and then come back with the catwalk, you can then like double wall your stuff without having to use the foundation. It's actually a really great trick, and I don't see a lot of people use it. And if they do, maybe they don't tell me about it. I don't know. I'm not that cool. So anyhow, all right. So we got our first walls in. We're following the same line of thinking, trying to get everything into place. So I'm going to destroy those Helvetia walls just so that way they're already out of my way and I'll be able to snap things into them. Like this other wall over here on this side. That's why the catwalk's over there, and I decided to destroy them because I can't do anything about placing any walls until these Helvetia ones are destroyed. But once they're destroyed, I'll be able to double wall whatever I want, and I'm going to use catwalks to do that. Alright. So I'm also destroying the roofs here too, so that way I have no problems snapping the angled pieces up through them, because that can be a little bit cumbersome. And again, just like I was talking about, see, I went one wall further than I needed to, and I snapped a wall into place, and then I used a catwalk off of that wall. And you can only do this from the bottom of the walls. I think that's because that's the snapping point. But when you do it from the bottom of the walls with the catwalks, you'll be able to double wall. So if you didn't watch my wall tutorial, it is a really neat trick. We're going to do that one more time. All right, and yep. There we go. And now we have all four of our main walls on this side done. And because those walls are good, I already know that the walls along the other side, so you see me doing this one, like the large side, the other side is going to be fine, because since these walls line up, I'll just be able to use foundations off of those walls. And so in order to destroy these, I put the brick walls up there. Obviously, you have to use the brick walls, or I do believe you can use the red barn set to do this too, but I usually use the brick for this. And once I destroyed those half walls, I can then whoop, whoop, double wall that. Cool. And then I'm going to remove that. And then repair this. So actually I didn't remove it, and I remembered why now, because of course we have to add our angled walls. And in order to destroy those, again, I use brick. In order to destroy those ones, then I need to make sure that I have a place for my little Flamey Boy 1200, as DNG calls it, to destroy them without having to stack it on tables, right? So anyhow, once those are destroyed, I'll be able to then place other angled walls in. If you notice, one of the things that I keep looking at too, it's not just for your sake, it's for mine too. When I'm putting these in, I'm actually lining them up to make sure that they're still kind of underneath the roof, or at least I know they will be when I change it to like the casino walls. Those look pretty good, but yeah, I want to make sure that, yep, see? So I'm always kind of just double checking myself to make sure everything's gonna like be flush. I end up after this part of the tutorial, I ended up adding a third layer of roof to this because I did decide that I was going to use the angled walls from the Clean Ranch set, but I didn't drag you through that part of the tutorial because honestly, if you've watched up to this point, you should have a pretty good working knowledge of how to add a third layer. The third layer would be super easy because in all honesty, I already have everything set up for it. All I'd have to do is do that that one trick that I showed you when I was doing that one angled build with the fully angled roof. Same rules apply. It's actually not that hard once you have the key roof pieces in place. So yeah, I got my ingolds in place. I'm going to destroy those. And I know these walls look really crazy right now. You're like, oh my god, what is this going to look like when you're all done? One thing to consider as well, when you're doing these overlapping walls like this, there are some wallpapers that are going to start flickering immediately. If that happens, you can always try and change the wall type to prevent that flickering. Some of the wall types have varying depths or thickness to them, and it might be by a pixel, but that pixel might be the thing that saves you from getting a bunch of flickering. And yeah, so I got my base walls in. I'm not going to walk you through the rest of this because in all honesty, the rest of this is pretty self-explanatory. Getting those walls along the side, you're just going to use a foundation. That's how it turned out. I thought it came out pretty good. For those of you who've stuck through this whole tutorial, hopefully you got something out of this. I know it was a lot. Thank you so much. If you liked what you saw, you found it helpful, share it with your friends, subscribe if you're not already. Stay blessed. Thanks again. Have a great day.